Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Savari Nischacha Desatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we're continuing to discuss what is perfection and how to achieve it. And we had some relief yesterday to find out that just by trying to satisfy Krishna, that's perfection. And that perfection is not really, in a sense, within our power, but it's within the power of the process. The process is perfect. We're not perfect. But the process will give us perfection even though we're not perfect. That was the good news. I am very much pleased that you are making such nice advancement in Krishna consciousness, and that you are always thinking in so many ways how to best serve the Lord. By fixing your attention in this way, worrying how He will be pleased with me, you will naturally very soon reach the supreme highest perfection of life, which is pure Krishna consciousness. So, in this letter and other letters, Prabhupada's describing, as we said yesterday, you make the effort, you try your best to please Krishna, and then Prabhupada's saying, by that process, you will become perfect, or the process of devotional service will make you perfect. So it's the same idea. You don't try to be perfect, you just try to please Krishna to your best capacity. And by doing that, you become perfect. Now, Prabhupada's definition of perfect may not be the same as our definition of perfect. We might think that perfect means I have prema. And so you could substantiate that in Shastra, yes, that's what it means. But what we saw with Prabhupada is that if a disciple executed his instructions sincerely, that was his perfection. That Prabhupada would see that. That's like the perfect disciple, even though he's imperfect. He's the perfect disciple because he'll do whatever his spiritual master asks. And by doing that, he'll become perfect. And the most standard definition that I saw of Prabhupada saying your life will become perfect is you'll go back home, back to Godhead. That was, that's the perfection, right? Go back home, back to Godhead, that's perfection, right? Isn't it? So when Prabhupada's saying very soon you'll reach the highest perfection, that means go back to Godhead. That's the highest perfection. And so if we see it that way, then Prabhupada's saying, you follow the process, you sincerely try to fulfill the order of your spiritual master to the best of your capacity, and by doing that, at the end of your life, you'll go back home, back to Godhead, which is the perfection. And many, many times, as you probably all know, Prabhupada said, if you do A, B, and C, I will take you back to Godhead. Like we were saying yesterday at the end of class, that that confidence was very high amongst the disciples of Prabhupada in the early days, because we didn't feel particularly qualified, but we did have a desire to please Prabhupada, and that desire was very strong, all of us. And so we had that confidence, if we would please Prabhupada, that everything would come from that. And that whatever perfection we could achieve, we weren't so worried about achieving it, we were more worried about fulfilling Prabhupada's desire. That was, we weren't thinking, I need to go back to Godhead. If I don't go back to Godhead, my life is ruined. We were thinking, I need to please Prabhupada. I need to help him spread this movement. And with the confidence that if we do that, everything else will be taken care of. Or whatever needs to be taken care of will be taken care of. And Prabhupada promised it over and over again, so we just serve, not worrying about the consequence of what's going to happen, but with faith that by doing this, Prabhupada and Krishna will take care of us. And so the way of achieving perfection was very indirect. Please the Guru, get the mercy will do everything, and you become perfect, even if you're not perfect. You go back to Godhead. And now, sometimes Prabhupada said, well, you have to be completely pure to go back to Godhead. But in other times, he would say things like, dedicate your life to spreading Krishna consciousness, and at the end of life, you'll go back home, back to Godhead. And then there was no discussion of how pure you are, or you needed to be. And just, you do this and you go back to Godhead. So that was, I think, much more common than you have to be 100% pure, no desire, nothing, not even a trace, not even an ounce, not even a particle of desire for anything in this world. Otherwise you have to come back. That is the tattva, but under the banner of Mahaprabhu, that tattva changes a little bit, to make the world Krishna conscious, and Mahaprabhu will save you. Mostly that's what Prabhupada said. So perfection means to go back to Godhead. Prabhupada said, do this, do this, do this, and you'll go back to Godhead. Unless you don't want to go back to Godhead, that's another thing. You might kick and scream when Krishna takes you back to Godhead, but that's another thing. In the Skanda Purana, there's a statement about submission unto the lotus feet of the Lord. So this is, let me see, wait, I'm going to go back to that because it's a different point. I have noted your unbounded enthusiasm to carry out this great mission of spreading the light of love of Godhead in this hellish material world. That is the only requirement for successfully completing the perfection of the living condition, that you should always be enthusiastic to perform services unto the lotus feet of the Lord despite all obstacles. And then you can be assured that all of the other qualities or necessities for pure devotional service will be met, such as patience, determination, etc. And then, without doubt, you shall be delivered to the realm of unlimited bliss, free from all anxieties. So what is Prabhupada saying here? He's saying the only requirement for coming to the perfection of life is to always be enthusiastic, to perform your service, and don't give up your enthusiasm despite all obstacles. And if you continue in your service enthusiastically, all good qualities will develop. And because of that, without a doubt, Prabhupada said, without a doubt, you'll be delivered to the realm of unlimited bliss. In other words, you'll go back to Godhead, without a doubt. So that's why we were so confident, or so enthusiastic about spreading Krishna consciousness. You know, frankly, we weren't very enthusiastic about becoming perfect. It wasn't like something we even thought we could do. But we knew we could spread Krishna consciousness. But, you know, the idea of, well, maybe I'll move to Mayapur and sit under a tree and chant 64 rounds and eat one meal a day and do other kinds of tapasya. Nobody thought like that, because it's not what Prabhupada encouraged. Neither we thought, even if we could do that, we still didn't think really that we could become perfect like that. So it's letters like this where Prabhupada's saying, you go on with your devotional service despite all difficulties, and everything you need will come as a result of that. All the determination, and what else did Prabhupada say? Patience, determination, etc. Now, there's a really, really interesting conversation or morning walk where a devotee asked Prabhupada, how do you become determined to follow your vows? And Prabhupada said something very interesting. He said, it's not your business to become determined. He said, follow your vows and Krishna will give you determination. It's like a kind of like a very subtle point. Is that you might hear that and think, that doesn't make sense. What Prabhupada meant was that once you make a vow, then there's no question of thinking about how to follow it. You already made it. So Prabhupada felt that within the question there was a weakness. How do you remain determined? No, you can't not remain determined. You already made the vow. There's no question of not following. So Prabhupada said, you made a vow, commit to it, and then Krishna will give you determination. Like in your heart, in your mind, you commit. This is what I'm doing, even if I'm not determined. But I made the vow, so I must do it. And then, by that commitment, Krishna gives determination. Because we normally think of determination like, yeah, I need more determination. Prabhupada was looking at it differently. There's no question of determination once you make a commitment. It's just, you do it. Because determination means, I don't want to do it, and I need determination to do it. Whereas once you make a vow, there's no question of, I don't want to do it. So Prabhupada said, keep that commitment, and whatever you need to follow that vow, Krishna will give it to you because of your commitment. So it's a little different than we would normally look at it, right? Interesting, right? So it's saying something similar here. Despite all these obstacles, you go on, and then whatever determination, patience, etc., Krishna will give that. He sees that and he goes, oh, this is what you want, you're committed, so I'll give you everything else you need to be a pure devotee. So isn't that interesting? And then because of that, we can understand why Prabhupada's saying, if you dedicate yourself, you'll achieve perfection, because Krishna sees you're dedicated, so then he gives you whatever you need to be perfect. Yes?
But then, over the years, we've seen a vast number of devotees who dedicated so much of their lives to pushing on Prabhupada's movement, and then somehow or other, they couldn't finish their vows, they couldn't follow their vows, whatever it may be. And even Prabhupada, he said, when somebody said, why are so many devotees leaving? Prabhupada said, don't be surprised when they go, be surprised when they stay.
Yeah. So I would say that something shifted in that commitment. At some point, they got distracted. And that internal commitment shifted. And then everything that came as a byproduct before wasn't there anymore. Because ultimately, Krishna is just reciprocating with what's going on within us. And the lesson is, doesn't matter how good things were, they can always go bad. You know, we kind of think like, well, after all these years you're building up. But the greatest weightlifter can get sick. So it's not because he has big muscles and he's strong doesn't mean he can't get cancer or can't get a flu or something. At least that's how I see it.
But Prabhupada did say that don't be surprised when they go, be surprised when they stay. So how do you reconcile that he expected us to be committed, but at the same time, he also thought the majority.
Because he knew it's difficult. And he knew some would give up. That's how I see it.
But if Krishna is supposed to provide the determination.
But you have to have the commitment before he provides the determination. You have to be in the right consciousness for him to provide it. And if you deviate from it because you have free will, then he'll supply you with whatever it is you want or don't want. Because you always have free will, and you can, no matter, I mean, you have the example of Bharat Maharaj, so he got distracted by a deer, so that's the example. Even on the stage of Baba, there's a possibility you could become distracted, or you could commit offense, and that would destroy you, at least for the time being. No matter how good you think you're doing, Maya has a trick you haven't seen yet. That's my experience. A couple of years ago, that happened to me. I was just like shocked. Like I developed, you know, not a deep problem, but I developed a way of thinking that I didn't even know existed in me. You know, just for like a few days. And I was like, wow, where did that come from? I never expected that. I never felt that way. So you never know. And sometimes, I even think sometimes Krishna may throw that at you just to see your reaction. Okay. You know, here's something inside of you, let's bring it out and see what you do.
Doesn't Krishna know what we're going to do?
But that's still our choice. All right, maybe that's not the best way to say it, but he knows what we're going to do, but he doesn't know what we're going to do until we do it, in a sense. So sometimes, at least I think, Krishna puts situations in front of us, and he's looking, okay, where's your faith, where's your commitment, what do you really want? You know, and we can think that way also when we see those situations. But I always see them as opportunities. Oh, Maya's trying to, you know, peck at me. Okay, so now I have a chance to show Krishna I don't want Maya. And then when I show him that, then he gives me the strength to withstand whatever temptation there was. I think that's the point Prabhupada's making. You know, it's like, look at your commitment, and then Krishna will follow that commitment with whatever you need. You know, if I want to be Krishna conscious, then Krishna will follow that with what I need. So, it's not just, you know, it's not like I'm stronger than Maya, but Krishna's stronger than Maya, so he has to provide the strength to overcome the obstacles, because on my own I can't fight directly. But because I want to, and because I'm making an effort, then he helps. Because when this conversation was going on, when they were asking about determination, Prabhupada said, they said, what about determination? He said, that's not your business, that's Krishna's business. What an answer. What an answer. It's not your business to be determined, it's Krishna's business. It's your business to follow your vows. You made these vows. So once you do that, then it's his business. It's your business to commit to follow, and it's his business to help you because you committed to follow. That's amazing, isn't it?
Sounds like teamwork.
It is, exactly. And that's how we understand yayatamam prapadyante. So that's wonderful, but it's also problematic when you don't think in the right way. Because then Krishna is now giving you whatever it is that would facilitate your maya, that you're desiring or contemplating. That's the problem. Which is basically how it's been for our whole time in the material world, just thinking how to enjoy, and Krishna then guiding us. I mean, look at modern society. Look at all the gizmos and gadgets. That's all, Krishna providing intelligence, You want to be able to sit on your sofa and control the universe, with apps, Cook a potato, turn on a light, turn off the TV, and call somebody around the world, Okay, that's what you want? Okay, I'll give you the intelligence. And then you get addicted. That becomes your nemesis, but that's what you wanted. So now everybody's, just looking at their phones all day. 150 times a day, average person looks at their phone. It's something like every 15 minutes. They're addicted. They can't go for 15 minutes without looking at their phone. I was just in China. We had to take everyone's phone away because they couldn't sit and listen to me without checking their phone. That was terrible. Like crazy. I think that's the worst place in the world that I've seen.
Why do you think that is?
Easier to have a relationship with a phone than a person. Then, yeah, could be. I'm not sure, but Asian people are not people who emote. They're taught to hold emotions in. So that gets in the way of relationships, so maybe relationship with a phone is better. But I think that's probably true for many people. If you walk around with your phone in your hand, you're addicted. If you look at your phone first thing you get up, you're addicted. If you can't put it down for more than 15 minutes, you're addicted. Where was it? One country, I forget which country, has officially declared cell phone addiction as one of the major addictions up there with drugs and alcohol.
One of the Scandinavian countries, isn't it?
I'm not sure. But they've made it official, like, smoking is hazardous to your health. Hazardous to your health, this phone is addictive. It's hazardous to your life. Interesting. Is that okay?
Well, not really. It's terrible.
Krishna, the attitude is everything, and then Krishna kicks in. So, when you see someone very determined, it looks like he's determined. But really it's Krishna giving the determination because that's what he wants. And false ego says, I'm determined. And real ego says, I have a desire, Krishna's giving me the determination. A lot of people say, how can you become determined? That's the answer. By making that commitment to Krishna consciousness, and Krishna will help you. Despite whatever happens, you won't give up. Yes?
So does that mean upon internal reflection, if I don't have the determination to do something, it means my desire for it isn't so strong.
Yeah, or the commitment. Yeah, the desire or the commitment, yeah, needs to be stronger. It's kind of like a button, you know, you hit a button and then whatever that button does happens. So you hit the button of apathy, then Krishna will intensify the apathy. You hit the button of commitment, he'll intensify it with determination. A button of apathy, he'll take it away. But just like in a verse where Krishna says, about demigod worshippers, I make their faith strong to worship the demigods. So if he makes their faith strong, why wouldn't he make the devotees' faith strong? Or anybody's faith strong, because that's what they want. And in that sense, that makes Krishna consciousness very easy. It also makes it very difficult, depending on you. But if you have the right attitude, then it's very easy, because Krishna is always responding to that attitude. If you have the wrong attitude, it's difficult. And then when we say things, "Whoa, Krishna consciousness is difficult," then we know why we feel that way, because we're lacking the commitment. You know, sometimes when we do japa workshops, I tell devotees, said, look at how you're chanting. Chanting is a communication with Krishna. You're talking to him, you're telling him, Krishna, I need you, I want you, and so forth. But look at how you're chanting. And so sometimes the chanting's like this. And I go, come on. Krishna's laughing at you, thinking, look at this guy, who's he trying to fool, you know? The holy name means, Krishna, I want you, and like crying like a mother, and so I tell them, you know, what do you think Krishna's thinking when he sees you? Like, look at this joker. Who's he trying to fool? And if you don't feel it, how's Krishna going to feel it? If you don't believe it, how Krishna's going to believe it? Nobody can feel something if you don't feel it. Yes?
I've heard many different things concerning japa. Like in the beginning, I've heard many people saying that quantity is more important than quality.
Yeah. I think you're listening to the wrong people. Just listen to your japa and then think, what is Krishna thinking right now? What am I communicating to Krishna? That I want to be Krishna conscious, or I just want to get my rounds done? What am I communicating? I want to be Krishna conscious, or I really don't like chanting. You know. Have you seen that video? Any of you seen the video? Courtesy japa video. There's different scenarios. Devotee chanting, playing games, chanting, driving, chanting, watching TV, they're eating, chanting, watching TV. So, you know, what does Krishna think? All right, you know, you don't want to chant japa? Okay, let's play a little game right now. It's called take away your attraction for japa. I think I'll do that since you're not attracted. I'll just, you know, you don't want to be attracted, you're not trying. I'll just take your attraction away, because it seems that's what you want. Or the opposite, Krishna, please give me taste, Krishna, please this, that. And you're chanting like this, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, and you're really feeling it, and Krishna's like, oh, okay, let's do something with this devotee. Krishna says, I can work with this, give me something to work with. Give me a holy name I can work with. I can't work with this. Again, I need something more to work with. So you give it, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare. Oh, I can work with that. And then things start happening. And all of a sudden you finish 16 rounds and you're thinking, why stop now? It's getting good. Things are happening. Otherwise you hit 16, it's like, thank God it's over. That was hell. But all Krishna's doing is reciprocating with your hellish mentality. So if it was hell, you know, look in the mirror. Don't blame anybody, but it was your attitude, and Krishna is just responding to your attitude. I don't have any determination. Where did that come from? Krishna, why don't you give me determination? What's Krishna going to say? Because you don't want it. Otherwise, I'd give it to you if you wanted it. Right? I mean, that's what Prabhupada said. It's not your business to be determined. It's Krishna's business to give you determination. Your business is just to follow your vows. Wow. That's all I can say is, wow. That's amazing. Isn't it? If you give Maya something to work with, she'll work with it. If you don't give her anything to work with, she can't work with you. Maya comes to your house and says, let's dance. And you go, nah, I don't like to dance. No, let's do something. Nah, I don't like you. Go away. Because she's got nothing to work with. But if Maya comes and says, let's dance, you go, yeah, I'm ready. Now she'll work with you. But then Krishna won't work with you. Or vice versa. So give something to Krishna to work with. If you give Krishna blah, there's nothing to work with. Hare Krishna. Oh. Oh. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Oh, and Krishna's saying, well, that's how you feel about me. Well, see you later. I'm not in that name anymore. And then you're wondering why you get no taste. Wonder no longer. The answer has been given today. And it's obvious, isn't it? If you think about it, it's obvious. That's my experience. I mean, seriously. I do this joke, it's so funny. So, the holy name means, Krishna, please engage me in your service, but it means more than that. It means I've been serving Maya for millions of lifetimes and I'm finished. She's beat me. I don't want Maya. So that's what it means. Krishna, I want your service, I don't want Maya's service. I want to reconnect with you. That's what it means. And that is a pretty intense prayer. I've been in the material world for lifetimes, Krishna, I want you. So how should that sound? Right? So let's translate that Maha Mantra into English. Krishna, I need you, I want you, please help me, into Krishna, I need you, I want you, please help me, Krishna, I need you, I want you, please help me, Krishna, I need you, I want you. It doesn't translate. It translates into, I really don't like chanting, and it's really boring, I wish I didn't have to chant. Maybe I could join another movement, we only have to chant 4 rounds. That's what it translates into, doesn't it? So you listen, like Prabhupada said, listen to yourself, chant sincerely. Listen to yourself, listen to the mood, listen to what you're communicating, and what do you think Krishna's thinking? Oh my God, this hopeless person, I can't even help them. Krishna's saying, he's looking at you and saying, give me something to work with. I can't work with this. I can't work with that. Give me some heart. Give me some desire to work with. I can work with that. Right? Hare Krishna. Oh, here's the answer. We have a letter to answer your question. Regarding your question of an initiated person falling prey to Maya. Something mystical is happening tonight. The answer is that so long we are in the material world, there's always a chance of being spoiled by Maya. So we must stick with vow to the lotus feet of Krishna. I'm so happy when I give an answer and then I read what Prabhupada said and it's the same answer. I think, yes! I'm like somehow or other I can channel Prabhupada. It makes me so happy. An initiated devotee is given the chance for becoming free from the entanglement of karma wheel. Initiated means beginning, not perfection. The spiritual master's business is to guide him to the perfectional point. But if one does not strictly follow the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, his initiation does not bear any meaning. The initiation performance is an agreement by the disciple to abide by the order of the spiritual master. Therefore, if the spiritual master is bona fide and the disciple is serious to abide by his order, then the success is sure. But if a disciple follows strictly the devotional way of life, he is no longer a karmi. And all his activities, which may appear to be like ordinary work, or it may be activity according to scriptural injunction, are counted as devotional service. And devotional service in all circumstances is free from the actions and reactions of karma. So Prabhupada says here, an initiated devotee is given the chance. So it doesn't mean that when you get initiated, everything happens. It's like, okay, now you have a chance. But if you don't follow the order of the Guru, then what's going to happen? Not much. Initiated means beginning, not perfection. Spiritual master's business is to guide him to the perfectional point. So you're starting out, initiation is the beginning. Spiritual master will guide you to the perfectional point. But if one does not follow, then his initiation does not have any meaning. So it's the same thing. The spiritual master needs something to work with. If he gives advice and you don't follow, then there's nothing to work with. So the advice is good, but it falls on deaf ears. So what's the meaning of initiation? The real meaning is to follow the order of the Guru, not the ceremony. Siksha is the most important. The siksha continues, and without siksha, then how do you go back to Godhead? So everything is up to the, you have the perfect spiritual master, but you need the disciple also, right? At least, maybe not the perfect disciple, but a good disciple, right? You have a good seed, but you need fertile soil. Simple, right? And sometimes people might think, well, if I just get initiation, then I can sit back and relax, and the spiritual master will just fly me back to Godhead, and I don't have to do anything. Yeah, it's not that easy. You have to do something. He'll fly you back to Godhead, but you have to do something. Right? Yeah, a little something. The criterion of perfection is to act in Krishna consciousness, not with a view to enjoying the fruits of work. Okay. So the last thing I wanted to talk about is the higher stage, when there's what's called siddhi lalasa, when a devotee is hankering for perfection, like hankering to realize his swarup with Krishna. Because at some stage of bhakti, you just start developing a desire to understand your relationship with Krishna, or to have that relationship with Krishna. In the Skanda Purana, there is a statement about submission unto the lotus feet of the Lord. It is said that there are those who are sober devotees, it is said there that those who are sober devotees can offer their submission to Krishna in 3 ways. Very feelingly offering prayers, humbly submitting oneself, and the third, desiring some perfectional stage. It's called lalasa mai. This desiring some perfectional stage in spiritual life is not sense gratification. When one realizes something of his constitutional relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he understands his original position and wants to be reinstated in that position. In other words, at a certain stage in devotional service, it'll just be clear what rasa you're in, but it hasn't developed yet. And at that point, you want it to develop, and you want to know more about it. So that's what Prabhupada's talking about, this point where You want to enter into that relationship. Mm. That is called lalasa mai, or very eagerly desiring to go to one's natural position. This lalasa mai stage of submission comes in the stage of perfect liberation, which is technically called Sarup Siddhi, when the living entity understands by perfect spiritual advancement and revelation his original relationship with the Lord. So there's one other thing I wanted to read, and this is a song by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, which manifests this mood. And this is interesting, because he's hankering for Baba, like when is it going to happen? And that's something we're encouraged to do, because hankering is, it's normal to hanker. But what are you hankering for? Pizza tonight? So this is what Bhaktivinoda Thakur is hankering for. When, oh when, will I wander here and there, weeping in the shade of the trees and creepers along the banks of the celestial Ganges River in Navadvip? I will cry out, O Radha, O Krishna, and will completely forget about all the so-called pleasures of the material body. He's saying, when is that going to happen? I'm looking for, like, here I am in the material world, eating pizza on Saturday and Sunday night, and I'm thinking, when will that day come when I just want to run on the Ganges screaming, Gauranga, O Radha, Krishna, where are you? But now I'm hankering for pizza. So when is it going to change? Right? So that this develops at a certain stage of devotional service. That your hankerings shift from, when can I get that new Mercedes, to this. When will I be able to live so simply by begging some food from the homes of the untouchables? I will drink the water of the Saraswati River, and in ecstasy I will roll about on the banks of the river, raising a loud uproar of Krishna, Krishna. When will I bow down to all the inhabitants of the holy land of Navadvip and humbly beg for a drop of their mercy? I will smear the dust of the Vaishnava's lotus feet all over my body and will wander around wearing the dress of a madman. Don't practice this at home. When will I make no distinction between the holy land of Gaur Mandala and Braja Mandala? At that time I shall be transformed into a Brajbasi. Then I will see the true form of the transcendental realm opening up before my very eyes, and I will thus become one of the maidservants of Srimati Radharani. Like when you walk around Vrindavan and you see, here's Radhakund and here's Govardhan, like, when will I actually see it? Please tell me, when will that day be mine, when my offenses will end and the power of divine grace will infuse my heart with a taste for the pure holy name? And so this is very common for devotees to pray, when will I actually taste the holy name? Maybe tomorrow morning? Maybe Tuesday morning? Maybe tonight? Maybe next week? Thinking myself lower than a blade of grass, bringing forbearance into my heart, respecting all, and freed of false pride, when will I taste the essence of the liquid nectar of the holy name? This is so interesting because he's basically paraphrasing now the Shishastakam. Neither wealth, nor followers, nor beautiful women described in worldly poetry, none of these bodily pleasures do I covet. O Lord Gaur-Hari, please give me causeless devotion to your lotus feet, birth after birth. When, as I chant the divine name of Sri Krishna, will my body thrill with ecstasy and my words choke up? When will the pallor and trembling occur, and when will my eyes pour forth endless streams of tears? Shishastakam. When will I run about on the Ganges bank in Navadvip, guilelessly calling out, Gaura Nityananda, dancing and singing like a madman, giving up all mundane considerations? So next time you go to the Ganges, you can think of this verse. Right? You go to the Ganges, there's the Ganges, and you're like, okay, that's the Ganges, all right. Isn't it? Oh, yeah, that's the, yeah. Hello, it's the Ganges. You're supposed to like feel something. Yeah, I know. I'm supposed to feel something. Yeah, right. Isn't it? So you can go there and say, when, oh when will that day come when I run along the Ganges in ecstasy, singing Gaur Hari, Gaur Nityananda. I remember first time we did Parikrama, we would go to all these places where Mahaprabhu had the Leelas, and they would describe the Leelas, and you'd be sitting there, and it's just like, when can I enter those Leelas? When can I see this? It's like, that's the mood. When will Lord Nityananda show me mercy and release me from the illusion of materialism? When will he give me the shade of his lotus feet and let me enter the marketplace of the holy name? I shall buy or steal the mellows of the holy name of Hari, and after becoming intoxicated with those mellows, I shall become stunned. By touching the lotus feet of the great souls who relish those mellows, I shall constantly drown in the sweet nectar of the name. And the last verse. When will compassion for all fallen souls awaken within this bhakti vinod? And when will he thus forget his own happiness and with a meek heart set out to propagate by humble entreaty the sacred order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? So, these are things we can hanker for. And in our japa workshop, sometimes we ask the devotees to write your own prayer of hankering towards the holy name. When will I? And then you fill in the blanks. Whatever it is. When will I have a taste? When will I realize your presence, Krishna? Whatever it is you desire. It's nice to pray that way, because otherwise we're going to hanker for something. Might as well hanker for that. Right? So you have any questions? We have 13 minutes to 7 for some discussion. Gopi?
Thank you for the talk, Gurudev. So coming back to the point that the statement that Prabhupada made, that determination is not our business.
Yeah.
I have a way of understanding this, so I want to try and explain it, and maybe you can say if it's accurate or not.
Okay.
It almost feels to me like Prabhupada is saying that first we should just make a choice, and then later will come the feeling. Bhakti is supposed to be always driven by feeling, and in the more advanced stages it's all just spontaneous feeling.
Yes.
And in the beginning even it's also a feeling, but it's less of a feeling in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And there will be some sort of a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
And we just have to make a choice and have some sort of a dry struggle, just at least in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then Krishna will give some feeling.
Second chapter, Gita. Do your dharma. Yeah. But, that's true, but still, when we offer, the feeling is, Krishna, I don't have you. That's a feeling that's real for us. Krishna, I don't have you and I want you. So that feeling can be there. The feeling of, maybe deeper feelings of bhakti may not be strong, but the feeling that I don't have bhakti, that's strong. And I want bhakti, I don't want this condition. So that can be cultivated now, because that's natural. Just like Prabhupada said, Krishna, please engage me in your service, don't engage me in my service. That I can feel. Very frustrated with being engaged against my own will in Maya. So those feelings. Like a lot of times devotees say, when I chant I don't feel anything. And my response is, how does that feel? So really, if you poke through it, you see there are feelings, maybe not very elevated ones, but there are feelings that you can cultivate even in a very beginning stage, which maybe are more like what I don't want, or desire I would like to have that I don't have. But higher feelings of devotion, obviously they can't come before they come, but like I was saying yesterday, when I heard repeatedly that we should try to please Krishna, I started thinking, okay, Krishna, I'll do this for your pleasure. I don't know what it means. So that can be there to some degree. I offer this to you for your pleasure. Yes?
I also just want to add that if you do, however, take sort of like a cheat code or cheat route, which is to help with Lord Chaitanya's mission, as Prabhupada mentioned so often, and at the end of the prayer of Bhaktivedanta Thakura also mentioned that, when will I dedicate myself? I just, in my own personal experience, if you do that, like for example, me and Tiana just joined a little Harinam earlier today in the compound, and then so many of the Bengali visitors become very enlivened to see us chant. That gives you feelings beyond what you're supposed to be.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. That's like we said yesterday, Mahaprabhu broke all the rules. So one of the rules he broke is you get ecstasy before you deserve it, before you actually qualified to get it. Just join the Sankirtan party and all kinds of things happen that aren't supposed to happen for people in our stage of devotion. So that's definitely true. Yeah. But that's all under the mercy of Mahaprabhu. And we're all mercy cases, and so we're not going to advance without mercy. So we're dependent on that. Like I can produce something by my effort, but not a whole lot. So I'm depending on him to produce whatever he can give me. That's the idea. Oh, we're supposed to go to 7:30, right? Oh, I thought we were going to 7. I forgot. I spaced out. All right. Well, we have more time for questions otherwise. Yeah. But this also, it also takes away pressure from us in the sense of us having to produce a result that we're not capable of producing. Can you produce ecstasy? Can you force ecstasy? No. Can you even produce advancement? No. But you can follow the process that will produce the ecstasy and the advancement. And that's how it works. And then all of a sudden, you get realizations that only advanced devotees should get. Or you're feeling some ecstasy that is not equivalent to your level of devotional service. You shouldn't feel that way on your level. But that's Mahaprabhu breaking all the rules. Okay, you all get ecstasy. You're not really qualified, but if I don't give you ecstasy, how are you going to get up tomorrow morning and do devotional service? You'll just go back to your normal life. So I have to give you something better. And that's why we became devotees. And I was saying, I think today, I was saying this morning on our walk that everyone needs a sufficient dose of ecstasy to make it through the day without too much trouble. And ecstasy is available. Just like the Prabhupada once said, you should dance in the kirtan because if you dance, ecstasy increases. So we saw that when the kirtans would get going, Prabhupada would go like this. He wanted us to dance, and when we danced, he would have a big smile. And when Prabhupada would smile, we'd all go crazy. First he goes like this, we jump up, and then he smiles and he's playing the gong, we're like, ah, Prabhupada! And so Prabhupada's like orchestrating this ecstasy, and so Prabhupada's very happy because there's so much ecstasy, and that's what Prabhupada wants, because he knows where there's ecstasy, everything is going to be good. We're all going to be very stable and happy in Krishna consciousness. And, you know, there are things we've given up in our lives that maybe we were attached to or we like doing. So if we don't replace it with ecstasy, how are we going to give it up? It'll just come back and haunt us. Remember me? You gave me up? Well, you probably want me, don't you? And you're like, yeah, I do. Well, let's go out. Right? But if the ecstasy is there, you're like, forget you, you're nothing. Why would I want you? Right? So that's Mahaprabhu's gift. You get ecstasy you don't deserve. And that's the gift comes through the holy name. That's the power of the holy name. It contains ecstasy, and it contains within it prema. So because it can give you prema, then it has little drops of prema in it, that like seedlings. So you can chant the holy name, you can do kirtan, and you can get amazing realization. Have any of you ever had a realization and then you stopped and thought, I don't deserve that realization. That's like a realization that like higher. You know what's really one, I don't know if this has happened to you. You get a realization, then you open Bhagavatam and that realization is like right there in the purport. Has that happened to any of you? That's like amazing, you know. You're getting a realization that Prabhupada had written in the purport. Well, that's like crazy. And 2 years ago you were like, just a total materialist, and now you have all these realizations. That is mercy. And it's the only way we can be Krishna conscious. Right? So, it's coming through the holy name and the Sangha and the Bhagavatam. So don't minimize the power of those processes. I should have a billboard up here in Mayapur. Have you had your dose of ecstasy today? Have you drank your nectar drink today? Yes?
So you mentioned that Maya engages us against our will. So Arjuna addressed that in Bhagavad Gita. And so what is it that causes a man to act against his will? And Krishna says it's lust. So, and then he says, defeat this enemy of lust. Any tips or tricks on...
Tips or tricks to defeat lust? Sounds like a little handbook.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that Prabhupada is trying to do, he's trying to reason intelligently with us. In other words, you have a desire, but that desire is going to destroy you. And so there's no question that desire is a conditioned desire, it's a habit. You want it. But Prabhupada is reasoning that this is going to destroy you. And by following this path, you're giving up this path, which is going to take you back to Krishna. So by appealing to intelligence, then one can gain the strength to overcome so many temptations, just by looking at where the temptation takes you and where restraint takes you. I don't know if you saw this on Facebook, like a couple of weeks ago, there was a discussion by some devotees not very knowledgeable, it seemed, like what's wrong with sex? Like I like sex and what's the big thing and why are we so Victorian and this and that. And I didn't want to get involved in the discussion because if I give an answer, I've done on Facebook that much to continue the discussion. But if you want love of Krishna, then you're going to have to give up something. And that's one of the things you have to give up. It's just very simple. Why should I give up sex? I like it. So you can get love of Krishna, that's why. Oh, I didn't think of that. So, because if you don't control it, then you're not going to chant, you can't chant a pure holy name if you don't control it. It's that simple. So that's how Prabhupada appeals to us. Like, if you want this, there's certain things you have to give up and there's certain things you have to do, otherwise you don't get it. Do you want this? Yes, I want this. Okay. If you do this, you're not going to get it. Okay. Now all of a sudden the desires start changing. because the intelligence is analyzing. And that's why it's important to read and to hear class, because it keeps our intelligence sharp and sober. And when the intelligence becomes weak, the heart becomes weak, desire becomes weak, and then we're easy prey to our conditioned desires. Because really, what we're doing is we're constantly overcoming our conditioning, like all the time, through spiritual practice and knowledge and sangha and kirtan and japa. It's basically, there's all these tendencies pulling this way, and the process is pulling us the other way. Have you ever, been kind of lukewarm in Maya, and then you read Prabhupada's books, and it just knocked it out, in one dose, in 1 or 2 purports? What's actually happening is that the intelligence has become clouded and weak, and then you read the verse, the purport, a few purports, and then it cleans it out, so the intelligence is working again, and then the desires change. Oh, I was so foolish to be thinking like that. So, without having a clear intelligence, then it's difficult. And just think of it. One of the main things Prabhupada did was write books. So it must have been important for us. And he said, I want to give you so many books. If I live long, I'll give you this, I'll give you that. So, and every day he gave class. So it's obvious that hearing is an essential part of the process. And without sufficiently hearing, you won't have the clear and strong intelligence. Then if you don't have clear and strong intelligence, you won't do the process. And if you don't do the process, you won't be strong. So you need the hearing to get the strength to continue the process, which will purify you. Yes?
So it means don't leave out a step. Don't leave out a step.
Yeah, that's a big step. Hearing is a big step. I remember, like 1974 or 75. I was facing a situation, and it's really difficult for me. Then one sannyasi came and visited, and he said 2 sentences and completely wiped it out in 2 sentences. It was something I had been dealing with for a few weeks, and in 2 sentences he wiped it out. So that's the power of hearing. It just goes through intelligence. It makes sense, and you go, yeah. Why was I thinking that way? I was stupid. Then it's solved.
Can you repeat those 2 sentences, please?
It would be inappropriate. It would demean women. It was a demeaning, but I was in a situation where I needed to hear something. That was 1974. I wouldn't think what he said would be appropriate for modern audiences, but it was appropriate for me as an individual in that situation. So, but just the power of the word, it just cut through. It's like, this is the actual situation, so why are you lamenting? It's like this, it's not the way you think it is. And it was just yeah, you're right. And it just knocked it out of me. So really, when you read Prabhupada's books, that's really what's happening. Illusions and so forth, they're being dispelled. I often get letters and people say, I feel this way, I feel that way, I think this way, I think that way, and I think, how could you feel that way if you're reading Prabhupada's books? You couldn't feel like this. They're symptoms of not reading the books. There's certain, I just don't understand, I don't think like this. How could you not think like this? It's on every page in Prabhupada's books. I don't understand. Are you reading the books? So, this is very common, at least in my experience, where someone has a problem they shouldn't have, because Prabhupada's solving it on every page. Yes? Makes sense? Yes. And another thing. One time Prabhupada said, A devotee is a philosopher. We're all supposed to be philosophers. We should be discussing philosophy with ourselves, amongst ourselves all the time. That's what we're supposed to be doing. Coming together, meeting devotees, and talking philosophy, not talking about how good the pizza was at this spot. No, the pizza over there is even better because they use this. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You know. If you go over there, order this pizza. You know. That's not what we're supposed to be talking about. At least, especially not here. We're supposed to be talking philosophy. And if we discuss philosophy, as Prabhupada said, looking at the philosophy from different points of view, it gives us strength. And so you can do that because you study Prabhupada's books, you hear his lectures, and then there's so much to discuss. And he gives you so many ways of looking at things. And that gives you strength. Simple, right? Yes? What did you talk about today with your friends? You don't have to mention it, but something to consider. Yes?
Can we read and take prasadam?
Can we read and take prasadam at the same time? Prabhupada used to take prasadam alone in silence. I mean, you can, but maybe hearing is easier. Yeah. Anything else? I read everything that I had to read today, so we ended early. Yes?
You mentioned about the importance of service. So I was wondering, like, in the previous ages, it was like the austerity. So is the service... In the previous ages, there was a lot of emphasis on austerity.
Satyuga, especially Satyuga. Yeah.
So is service or austerity now?
Yes, one of the austerities. I mean, you can look at it that way. Depends what your service is. It may not be an austerity for you, one service, but it may be an austerity for her. But, I mean, technically speaking, austerity means to accept bodily discomfort for the sake of spiritual advancement. So, your service... What?
Body and mind.
Yeah, well, you may have austerity of mind, but it may be not austere for someone else. But yeah, you could say it's your austerity, if that's the case. Yeah, you could say that. If your service is difficult and you do it steadily, that's your austerity. But you know that story, the funny story. I think it was Guru Das who was late for a morning walk, so he didn't stop to find his shoes, he just ran. Then he joined Prabhupada, and Prabhupada saw he had no shoes. So Prabhupada said, why don't you have shoes? Then he explained, and Prabhupada said, Krishna consciousness is already austere enough, you don't need more austerity. So, the goal is not austerity, the goal is to please Krishna. But if pleasing Krishna means you do austerity, yeah, why not? But austerity in and of itself is not the goal. Goal is to please Guru and Krishna. Please Prabhupada. And if you have to do something that's difficult to please them, then that's a great blessing.
But it has to come naturally, like...
What?
Like,
What?
the difficult thing to please Krishna, it cannot be like selfish. Sometimes people are attached to doing difficult things just to get a high.
That's okay. It's a different nature. They want a challenge, and they can do difficult things, and it's purifying. They like it. So that can be okay. I mean, maybe it has a downside for some people, not for everyone. But if you have a service that's difficult, then you can think, well, if I do this, then it allows me to show Krishna my determination, my devotion, all these things. So rather than run away from it, you could see it as an opportunity to show my devotion. You know, it's like if you love somebody and they're in difficulty, you know, they just fallen in the river. Now you can show your love by jumping in the river and saving them. So that would actually be like something that would be just such an honor for you to do, and such a bonding, you know, forever that would be bonding you with that person you love, that you were able to save their life. So we can see it like that also.
I do it because I have no other option.
But think of it as an opportunity to show Krishna. Well, you do have an option. You can always. Nobody's forcing you to do anything. But if it's difficult and you do it, Krishna's pleased. And so you've shown Krishna that you'll continue, even though it's difficult. So that's nice. If you think that way, it's easier to do it. You know, a lot of times we're doing something and we're thinking, I really don't like doing this, I really don't want to do this, I wish I didn't have to do this, etc. But a more advanced devotee won't think that way. He'll just, you know, he obviously knows he doesn't like to do it, he doesn't have to tell himself. But he doesn't think, I don't want to do it, he just thinks, oh, Krishna wants me to do it, so I do it. It's an opportunity to do some austerity. Because if it will please Krishna, ultimately I'll be pleased. And if I do something I like and it doesn't please Krishna, I won't be pleased. So that's how the devotee thinks. He knows that if I please Krishna, that's the best thing for my spiritual life and my happiness. And so he doesn't back away from it. And like you say, there are devotees that sometimes they actually look for austerity because they feel like that'll please Krishna. I don't like, some devotee might say, I don't like this, and that's the reason I'm going to do it, because I know Krishna will be pleased.
They're pretty strong.
Yeah. Or advanced. But it's true. No, I don't think masochistic, I think it's their experience, that by doing it they're actually happy. But also, that's the example Prabhupada set when he came to New York. He set that example. No security, nothing. But he wasn't depressed, right? You ever see Prabhupada depressed? Oh, it's so cold in New York. I just hate it here. So just a bunch of hippies. What am I doing here? I can't stand it. It was never like that. And then Prabhupada said he always felt close to his spiritual master. So that's there also. You know, if you're doing something difficult, but it makes you feel close to your spiritual master or close to Prabhupada, then the difficulty is just a slight consequence, but the prominent is the closeness and the happiness you feel from being close to your Guru. I was, about 3 years ago, I was helping a temple in a very difficult situation. It was really difficult, and you know, sometimes in difficult situations, if you favor a certain devotee, everyone who doesn't like that devotee hates you for no other reason than you like that devotee. So it was a situation like that. And the person who was creating this problem was the president, and he shouldn't have been the president because he had turned against his guru, and you could sort of understand the difficulty. So we were meeting and discussing and having to deal with all kinds of disgruntled devotees and upset devotees. And in the midst of it, I was thinking, what an honor it is to be able to serve Prabhupada and see if we could help save this temple. Now the temple is doing really well. Things are like better than ever. I went back there last year. And I felt so happy that things were going well. But when they weren't going well, I felt what an honor to be able to take on this burden and this anxiety in Prabhupada's service. I actually felt good, even though the situation was really bad. So you can think like that. Otherwise, you're going to take on anxiety for your own sense gratification. Right? Definitely. For sure. So who would you rather take anxiety for? Your own sense gratification or the service of Krishna? Yeah. Anybody else? You have a question? Yeah.
Prabhu's asking, when a person has envy,
Envy, yes.
is it free will or it's a lacking of satsanga?
Well, because we're conditioned, there are often conditioned responses that come up like envy, jealousy, or lust, or whatever. But the question is, what do you do at that point? That's where the free will comes in. Do I act on it or do I control it? Because sometimes as conditioned souls, we get hit by envy. But then, at that point, the question is, how do you process it? What do you do? Do you act on it? Do you talk about? Do you speak ill of that person? Or do you try to see that actually I'm envying him because he's doing what I want to do? So I'm actually respecting him. Just comes out as envy. Like I say, there are a lot of people sweeping the street. Do any of you envy them? You've seen them here in Mayapur, street sweepers. Do you ever think, oh my God, I'm so envious of him? Any of you? The guys, planting. Maybe you like the gardening, all this, but if you see somebody doing some labor that's not attractive, nobody thinks I'm envious of him. Right? But when you see somebody doing what you want to do or having what you want to have, then we become envious. It's because we actually respect what that person's doing, but we don't admit it. So when we feel envious, we have to admit, okay, this person has what I want to have. So I should respect him. He's done better than I have. So that's how you process envy. And if you don't process it, it's going to control you. And you're going to start speaking ill about the person. So everyone will say, did you hear about so-and-so? He's so successful. And you'll say, yeah, but. and you'll try to, short it out in some way. This is, well, he's successful because of this and this. He cheated the system. So if we allow that to happen, then we become controlled by the envy. But if we deal with it and understand what's actually going on and process it in a way that doesn't degrade us, then that's the best we can do in our conditioned state. We're upgrading it. Or with lust, or with greed, or with jealousy, anything. Anger. Just because you're angry doesn't mean you have to express it. Right? You can feel angry and deal with it and not express it. Does that make sense? The other thing is, if we're envious, then we have to recognize there's nothing wrong at all with the person we're envious of. It's just the envy is in me. And so we shouldn't try to make any excuse for it. And I think a lot of us make excuses for it. Like justifiable envy. Is there any such thing as justifiable envy? Well, if it's transcendental, yes, I envy you and you inspire me. I want to be like you and you inspire me. That's good. That's transcendental. But there's no justifiable material envy. But sometimes we try to justify it. So we're just fooling ourselves. Yes? Yes?
So if someone feels angry and doesn't need to express it, what this person should do with that anger?
Well, he can express it, but not yell. There's a mature way to express it. Yesterday when you said this, it really upset me, and I just wanted to talk to you about it because, etc., etc. That's a mature way of dealing with it. Or you could just yell at them and call them names. And that's what an 8-year-old would do. Yeah, or some politicians live in a place called America. Whose name we won't mention. Yes. But. So we can stop here? Is that okay? All right. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Go Premanandi Hari Hari Bol.